Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemens, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We are live right here in the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas. We're live on the radio at 98.7 Walk by Faith, 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation, 987radio.com. We're on social media, and we are ready to go tonight. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I hope everybody in Lubbock is... I haven't even seen what the status of the storms are out there. Apparently it's raining, and we're supposed to be getting some storms. It looks, let me check this out right quick. Yeah, we got some stuff coming at us here. And, if it knocks us off the radio, we'll try to get back on as soon as possible. Sometimes these storms look like they're going to move past us okay tonight, and we'll be all right. But, if we lose you on the radio, then I'll try to get us back together as soon as possible. And if not, you can we'll keep going as long as we have power on our social media pages. And you can go to the Rock Health and Wellness Centers on Facebook, or you can go to @Health from the Rock on YouTube, or you can go to Jason Clemens DC on X. Should be streaming on all those channels. Or you can go to the Walk by Faith Facebook page and check us out over there too. So, yep, we're good to go, and we're streaming on those channels. So, got a question right here. We'll probably dive deeper into it tomorrow night. One of our listeners says, is salt necessary for bones, brain function, and nervous system? The answer to that question is yes. How necessary it is, I will probably have to answer that question a little bit later. The bone part, salt's pretty regulated in your kidneys. And so water follows salt. Salt gets pulled into your body because your body needs it. In the old days, we didn't have that much access to salt. So our body it was like a commodity that it wanted to try to, anytime it had a chance to get salt, it would definitely keep salt inside the body. As we moved into a different type of society and societies, and we became more industrial and we had more availability to salt. Now I think we've gone past that, where we're overdoing it on salt. Now I hear lots of different ways that people talk about it. I hear lots of gurus out there talking about salt, but I hear a lot of things on the radio, and I sure don't want to be one of those people. But I hear a lot of people talking on the radio about health and wellness with no regard to whether or not what they're saying will work, and the responsibility for the patient. So I really do think it's important that when you're listening to people, I wish more people would take responsibility for what they're saying, because I think a lot of people say a lot of things that are not true, and they say those things without any responsibility of what might happen. It's like they're just going to go ahead and say whatever they want to say, and then you can follow their advice or you can not follow their advice. But if you do follow their advice and it goes wrong, then they're not going to say, well, I wasn't talking to you, whatever. It's like, so if you have a doctor, and you can ask your doctor what they think about salt. That would probably be a good. Now you may have multiple doctors. You may have a medical doctor, and you may have a health and wellness doctor, and you might want to talk to both of them about what they think about it. So I like to look at those, individual basis. What is your individual thing that's going on, and then look at the longevity people on Earth. What are they doing? And they're probably not having a whole lot of salt. They're having some, but they're not having a whole lot of it. So I've started to hear that, and here just recently, I've started to hear questions about, or statements made on social media about people saying, "Oh, you should just get a bunch of salt." It's like, that seems extreme to me. I don't think that's necessary, personally, but I do think it is part of physiology, And I do think there's lots of areas in the body that the body does need it. That's why the body keeps it when it can get it. So I might look into it and get you a better answer tomorrow, but that's what I got off the cuff on salt. We're not doing taking health to church tonight, in case you were here for that. I missed church yesterday because I drove to Santa Fe and back. I drove to Santa Fe on Saturday afternoon and picked up my daughter and brought her back so she could go to a dance recital. And we were, of all things, you probably won't believe this, but we drove through eastern New Mexico. We drove from Santa Fe, to Santa Rosa and came down to Fort Sumner and then came across to Clovis and then came back to Lubbock. We drove on the way back and we listened to the entire Post Malone F1 Trillion Long Bed CD. Jacob and Caitlin were in the car and Caitlin put that on there and we started listening. And so we listened. There's 27 songs, I think, on that. And, Post Malone did a good job with that CD. That was good. That was entertaining music all the way through. He's an interesting cat. And I don't know much about him other than what I've seen a little bit on TV or whatever. But that's what we did. On the way up there, Jacob played me all the songs for his musical next year. And I really think that y'all probably are not interested. Y'all are probably not interested in either one of those things. I can tell you one thing. It's beautiful country to drive through. If you just want to have a good, beautiful drive from Lubbock to Santa Fe and, drive out there through eastern New Mexico. It's just wide open spaces, man. It was just rolling hills and wide open spaces. And there was some rain out there. Everything was green. It was just beautiful. So I spent 10 hours. It was exactly 5 hours driving from Lubbock to Santa Fe and back. And that's what I did. So I missed church yesterday. So we're not going to have taking health to church tonight. So we're going to talk about a couple of comments that were made to me today. And then we're going to get into an article about, this article is about natural ways to decrease inflammation. And there's quite a bit of it, really. So there's a bunch of different ways that we can get into this. The title of the article is Natural Anti-Inflammatory Agents for Pain Relief. Surgical Neurological International, December 2010. A group of people from the Department of Neurosurgery, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, Pittsburgh, PA, and Vanderbilt University, Nashville, Tennessee. So we're going to get into that tonight and break that down. And maybe we'll catch up with Paul as if we can. But, one of the things we learned from Paul over the last couple of weeks is that Paul was a traveler and he traveled a bunch of miles. And so I traveled a bunch of miles. I traveled 10 hours worth of miles this weekend. It was beautiful. It was a good time with my kids. Drive there and drive back and got to walk around the plaza in Santa Fe. It's a different world. Stopped and got a Starbucks coffee on the way back, and they gave me a paper lid. And I said, "Can I get a stopper?" And she's like, "No, we don't do stoppers anymore. We do stickers." And I was like, "You want me to put that glue sticker on my coffee?" I was like, "That's insanity." It's like, we're going to save the planet, but we're going to kill the people on the planet. Like Starbucks is one of the biggest drug dealers in the United States if you consider sugar a drug dealer. I mean, a drug, right? So the crap that is distributed out of a Starbucks, I'm a black coffee guy, and some people say that's bad enough, right? But the caramel macchiatos and the lattes and the whipped cream and the sugar and all the stuff that they sell at Starbucks, they're killing the people that at the same time they're saving the planet. I was like, that doesn't even make any sense. Why don't you quit killing the people? So they'll be around long enough so that you can save the planet and there'll be somebody here. Because all these people are going to be dead from diabetes and cancer and Alzheimer's disease from drinking all this crap that you're distributing right here. I didn't have that whole conversation with her. I just simply was thinking it. when I was sipping out of that paper cup lid, and that coffee was soaking into that paper lid, and then it was all moist and soggy, like wet cardboard, is what it was. While I was trying to have a hot coffee. All right, enough of that right there. Couple conversations that I had today that I thought were pretty cool. Um, I had a conversation about physical, chemical, and mental emotional stress from a person that talked about you guys in chiropractic are y'all do a lot of counseling. Well, you're a counselor too, and I'm like, well, a lot of people say that you do a lot of counseling. We don't do any legal counseling. That's not within my scope of practice from a counseling standpoint. It is when it has to do with the subluxation, but not as a counselor. But yes, we do a lot of that in chiropractic. We try to address physical, chemical, and mental emotional stresses. And what I said to the guy today was, the old timers, they used to call it toxins, trauma, and autosuggestion. And then I was adjusting him. He was face down. I was adjusting him, and I said autosuggestion. That's what D.D. Palmer and BJ and those guys, in 1895. That's what they said was the reason for the subluxation, the interference in your nervous system. They said it was autosuggestion, and I just kind of hesitated for a second, and I thought, man, like we should break that down a little bit on the show tonight. Autosuggestion is the way you talk to yourself, the things that you say to yourself, the thoughts that you have just between yourself. Because we say physical, chemical, and mental emotional stress, but mental emotional stress sometimes is by definition it implies that someone else is involved or some other event is involved, right? But autosuggestion really doesn't make that claim. Autosuggestion is not necessarily saying that there's another event involved. It's saying, what are the sentences that I'm saying to myself? Now, a lot of times you'll say those sentences to yourself based on your surroundings and what's happening to you. But the original chiropractic philosophy of toxins, traumas, well, trauma is a physical stress. That matches up pretty good. If you say you had a trauma, well, that's the same thing as saying you had a physical stress. So I think that one lines up pretty good. And then toxins is a chemical stress. So that lines up pretty good as well. So toxins, trauma, and autosuggestion. The conversations that you have with yourself. And I don't have my green book with me right here, but there on page 7 of the green book. I might have it. Hang on. On page 7 of the green book is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite sayings that if you really. Let me see. See if I can search. No, it doesn't. Give me a second, because I might have it right here. There it is, right there. Yeah, freshman text. Here it is, page 7. The earnest student will notice that most phenomena of life. This is like, you get those things. You get those sentences like healthy people inhibit, right? Well, that's like bam. That's one of those sentences that's just a big deal. If you can get that sentence, it's like that's a big deal. Well, this particular paragraph is really a big deal to me. When I got it, I was like, this is this is right. This is right. Let me see. Hang on a second. I may have it. Let me see. One second. I may have it in. And because I think it would be super cool if I could figure out how to send this. It would be, no, I'll just read it for you. Sorry. I know it's like, what are you doing? All right, let me just read this. The story of what happens between cause and effect and cause. The earnest student will notice that most phenomena of life and nature pass through a cyclic course. The cycle repeating itself countless times. The number of times these cycles repeat is infinite. The stars and planet travel in cycles. The processes of life and death are in cycles. The number of cycles in the body extend into infinity. And this is it right here. This is like, bam, one of the best sentences that I've ever read, or best couple of sentences that I've ever read. It says, therefore, comma, if we get a grasp of it at all, we select the story that we want told, thus going from the general to the specific, and confine ourselves to the explanation of that one thing. That sentence right there, I think, is just there's just a sentence that a person could just dive into right there and just really own it. Therefore, if we get a grasp of it at all, to means if we had any sort of maturity about ourselves, if we had any sort of wisdom about ourselves, it's like if we really could just stop and have a little bit of maturity about what we were doing, if we had any grasp of it at all, we select the story that we want told, not the story that someone else wants told about us, not the story that our parents are telling about us, not the story that our spouse says about us, not the story that our boss or some coach that we had sometime along the way, or society in some sort of way that is like, no, we select the story we want told, thus going from the general to the specific and confine ourselves to the explanation of that one thing. That, to me, is one of the hardest things to do today in life, is confine ourselves to anything, because we've got so many things coming at us. We've got so much social media. We've got so many pieces of information that are coming at us, and to confine ourselves, just confine yourself to one thing. I had a guy I haven't seen since 2023 came in today, and he said, "So, how's your business?" And I said, "It's good. And the business is good." And he said, "Well, have you learned anything? You do anything new?" And I'm like, I'm just trying to be the best chiropractor I can be. And if I could confine myself to that one thing, I think we might get some traction. It's like I get so distracted sometimes from that it gets me off course. And it goes right along with the idea of auto-suggestion. What is the conversation that I'm having in my own head? And I'm the one that gets to tell that story, because I'm the one telling it in my head. Nobody else is telling it to me. So, hey, look, what's the story I want told about me? What kind of guy do I want to be? What kind of husband do I want to be? What kind of dad do I want to be? Like I drove to Santa Fe to pick up my daughter and bring her back because the car rental place wouldn't rent her a car that's one way. So she wanted to come back for the dance recital that she hasn't missed in 22 years. She started when she was 3 years old, and she hasn't missed a dance recital at the dance gallery in 22. This is her 22nd dance recital. So she was like really looking forward to it. She had this girls' trip planned, and she wanted to come back, and she thought she had a plan, and her plan fell apart because I thought about that too. It's like you're a car rental place. You're not going to rent a car to a person so that they can get done what they need to get done. All of a sudden, the world revolves around the rental car place instead of around the customer. Are you kidding me? But I was like, that. I don't care about the story y'all want to tell. Y'all can tell whatever story you want. You're not going to stop. You're going to have a bigger problem than that to stop this situation. So she just sent a text and said, "Hey, they won't rent me a car." And I said, "Okay, I'll come get you." And then she was all sad and freaking out. And she's like, "I don't want you to have to do that." And I'm like, "But you're not telling the story about me. I'm telling the story about me. And the story that I want told is That's the kind of dad I am. And I love you. And it's not that big a deal. Plus, Jacob and I, we would probably enjoy a little drive to Santa Fe and back. And we did. It was fabulous. I didn't have anything else to do. What was I going to do? I was going to take a nap and I was going to probably look at my phone. Like on a Saturday night. Leslie was gone. So we might have watched Star Wars. We've been watching Andor or something. He wants to watch that series. So we've been watching that and just hanging out. So I was like, hey, we can hang out in the car. We can just look at the pastures and stuff as we're going. And we went and we got up at 5:30. We left the hotel at 5:30. We got up at 5:15. Left the hotel at 5:30. Went and stopped by that Starbucks and got that paper cup. And then we took off and I went and got Caitlin and then we drove home. That's the story I wanted to tell. And I felt really good about it. Not because of anything else, but simply because that was the story I wanted to tell. So I guess I just say that to go back to the conversation that physical, chemical, and mental emotional stress is the same thing the old guys said, toxins, trauma, and auto-suggestion. How are you talking to yourself makes a difference in your health. That's just what I'm saying. How you talk to yourself makes a difference in your health. If you want to be healthier, talk to yourself in a more, take Jordan Peterson's advice, pick up your cross and walk up the hill. Make your conversations about that. Think of the very best thing that you could do today. Set your day up to do that and move yourself up the hill. And I think that's going to help solve some of the stress that we have from that right hemisphere of the brain and the sympathetic response and all that stuff. By the way we tell the story about ourselves. I don't think it needs to just be positive. I think it needs to be purposeful. It's a purposeful story, right? If you do that, you might increase your health. So, all right, let's get into this article. Enough of that already. We got a little bit of time before the break. And we're going to break this down pretty good. It's kind of a long article, but we're going to break it down pretty good. Like I said, natural anti-inflammatory agents for pain relief. Because you might want to be dealing with, you might have pain relief, right? So you might turn to your favorite over-the-counter non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. You might get your whatever gabapentin from your doctor or whatever your thing is, right? Everybody's got their own thing that they use for pain relief. Talked to one of my pregnant girls today. She told me she was pregnant. She's 7 weeks pregnant. And I was like, let me tell you something. After I adjusted her, said, we went through all that stuff. And I said, hey, stay away from acetaminophen during the whole pregnancy. Stay away from acetaminophen. I got lots of research that says you got to stay away from acetaminophen if you're pregnant. It's Tylenol, NyQuil, any of that stuff has acetaminophen. She will. She's a healthy person anyway, but I was like, that's not something you want to deal with, right? So the use of both from the abstract says the use of both over-the-counter and prescription non-steroidal medication is frequently recommended in a typical non-surgical practice. But persistent long-term use of safety concerns must be considered when prescribing these medications for chronic and degenerative pain conditions. This is coming from the doctors, right? This is coming from the Department of Neurosurgery at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center and Vanderbilt University. Okay? They're saying, although non-steroidal medication can be effective, herbs and dietary supplements may offer a safer and often more an effective alternative treatment for pain relief, especially for long-term use. And then some of the side effects of steroid drugs: increased infection, mood changes, cataracts, impaired wound healing, dermatitis, hypertension, increased appetite, adrenal suppression, fluid retention, stomach ulcers, weight gain, fat deposits, upper back and stomach, hyperglycemia, osteoporosis, depression, fat deposits, face and chest. Now, I'm just reading it straight off of the the article right there, this whole box about all of the side effects that go along with these steroid drugs. These authors also note, in most cases, the genesis of pain is inflammatory regardless of the etiology. Meaning, no matter how it started, the pain is probably the inflammation. This inflammation has two primary causes: inflammatory hormones, PGE2, leukotriene B4, etc., derived from omega-6 fatty acids or arachidonic acid. Or number two, inflammatory cytokines like interleukin. There's a whole bunch of different ones: interleukin 1A, interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor, proteins that are derived from the immune system cells. So inflammation has two primary causes: PGE2 and leukotrienes from omega-6s, and we've broken that down, and it's at the end of this article, so we will break it down again tonight if we get that far, because we're just about to have to come up on a break. So let's just hold it right there. We're going to come back from the break, and then the whole second half of the show is all going to be on this article about what we can use for pain relief and anti-inflammatory substances that are natural stuff. So we're going to take this break, and then we'll be right back. So you guys stick around with us. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC, and we'll be back right after these messages. And we'll just hang out just a minute while we're waiting on the radio. If you got any comments or questions, feel free to send them to me, 806-794-0400. You can send me a message on social media. I'll be glad to answer that too. I keep losing my article here. Yeah, down here at the bottom, I don't know if we'll get to it tonight or not, but down here at the very bottom of the article, you can see the cell membranes, and then there's your trauma coming in, and then here's the arachidonic acid, which is inhibited by EPA. And if you use the LOX enzymes, you get leukotrienes. If you use the COX enzymes, you get prostaglandins. And then that all comes down through, and then that ends up with inflammation, which drives the pain. It's the inflammatory. So I had a conversation today about a torn labrum in the hip. And it's like, okay, what's the cause of the pain? Is it the inflammation or is it the tear? Like, if we dealt with the inflammation, would you have to have the surgery to fix the tear? And would it heal itself? And is there any issues with that if we could fix the inflammation? And I really think that that's a big deal. If you really want to control your pain, control your inflammation. How do you control your inflammation? Internally, you keep your omega-6s down and your omega-3s high. And I talk about omega-3s and omega-6s all the time, but it's not my fault. It comes up in almost every situation. If you want to talk about Alzheimer's, you got to talk about inflammation. If you want to talk about cancer, you got to talk about inflammation. If you want to talk about arthritis, you got to talk about inflammation. It's like, okay, what do we want to talk about? Skin conditions. Last week we spent the show talking about some sort of viral infection that caused inflammation, right? That caused a fever. So it was like, it's why omega-3s is on the top two. Control your insulin, control your omega-3s. It's why it's that way, because it's involved in so many of these different things. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC, and we are breaking down natural anti-inflammatory agents for pain relief. We got an article going right here from the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center and Vanderbilt University. And we're talking about some of the things. And they're talking about the two primary causes of inflammation is what you get from arachidonic acid, where you have your omega-6s, and then your inflammatory cytokines that happen from your immune response. The use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, or NSAIDs, that's what your over-the-counter, like all of your Tylenol and all that stuff. The use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs, medication is still the mainstay of most classically taught clinicians for joint and spine-related inflammatory pain, despite their commonly known side effects. That's a big deal. It's a big part of that sentence. Despite their commonly known side effects, they're still going to make that recommendation. The pro-inflammatory cytokines stimulate the production of the pro-inflammatory hormone prostaglandin E2, the PGE2. NSAID's ability to interfere with the production of prostaglandin E2 is the major mechanism for the anti-inflammatory success of these drugs. I can't stress that enough. Like what they're saying right there. It's like, listen, the pro-inflammatory cytokines stimulate the production of pro-inflammatory hormone prostaglandin E2. And we have drilled this over and over and over again about this prostaglandin that's created, which is a chemical that's created that tells the body to increase the inflammation. That's what it does. So NSAID's ability to interfere with the production of prostaglandin E2 is the major mechanism for anti-inflammatory success of these drugs. If I told you that what these non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs do is they block the COX enzymes that are helping carry arachidonic acid into prostaglandin E2, you would look at me and say, I don't even know. You would look at me and say, I don't even know what that means. Okay. Yeah, never mind. Okay. If you knew the secret to the mechanism of the drug, and you knew the side effects of the drug, and you knew of anything else that did the same exact thing as the drug without the side effects, wouldn't it make sense that you wouldn't want to take the drug? Like, does that make sense? Maybe it does. Maybe that makes sense. I think it probably does. It's like, wait a minute. I just read the steroid side effects up here, and then these are non-steroidal side things, and all they do is block the COX enzymes and the LOX enzymes, or they block the COX enzymes from going through the pathway. I'll show you what that means in a minute. Inflammatory pathways. Prostaglandins act as short-lived localized hormones that can be released by any cell of the body during tissue, chemical, or traumatic injury and can induce fever, inflammation, and pain once they are present in the intracellular space. They are short-lived, localized hormones that once they get inside the intracellular space, so it's like, remember we talked about eicosanoids. We talked about the smoke signals going from one cell to the other cell, telling the cell what is going on in the environment. It's like this cell is talking to this cell, and it's telling it, hey, dude, what do you got? Have y'all ever been out to dinner? You ever been to dinner with your wife or your family or whatever, and you're looking at the menu, and everybody starts to say, hey, so what are you getting? What are you having tonight? Like, well, Leslie and I go out to dinner. We'll be looking at the menu, and she said, so what are you going to get? Or I'll say, well, what are you going to get? Right? What difference does that make? Well, it's just part of my decision-making process. It's a piece of information that I'm going to use, maybe or maybe not. I don't know. It's a piece of information that she's going to use. Is he eating healthy tonight, or is he eating garbage tonight, or whatever? It's like it's just part of the meal experience. We could all just get our menus and just sit there and not say a single word to each other, and then just order what we wanted. That's fine too. But a lot of times we'll ask each other, say, hey, what do you recommend? What, have you been here before? What, is there something on the menu that you like? Right? That is That's the communication between the people at the table to try to create some harmony in the meal. Fair enough. The cells do exactly the same thing. The one cell is wanting to talk to another cell. It's like, what is going on around here? Well, this cell is going to release prostaglandin E2, and it's going to talk to this cell over here, and it's going to tell this cell, hey, look, like this, because there's arachidonic acid in those cell walls, and there's arachidonic acid that's coming from the food, and then there's all of a sudden there's this prostaglandin that showed up inside your tissue, inside your muscle tissue, inside your heart tissue, inside your lung tissue, inside your joints. And then those cells are like, hey, what's going on with you? Well, I've got inflammation. And then that's like, I got inflammation. And then all of a sudden it sees that PGE2, it gets into the cell, intercellular space. Prostaglandins act as short-lived localized hormones that can be released by any cell of the body during tissue, chemical, or traumatic injury. That's what this cell is trying to tell this cell, and can induce fever, inflammation, and pain. Thromboxane hormones increase the inflammatory response. A major component of the inflammatory pathway is called arachidonic acid pathway because arachidonic acid is immediately released from traumatized cellular membranes. If you hit your finger with a hammer, then you bust the cell wall. You don't really realize that you've done that, but you bust this. There's cells in your thumb. You bust the cell wall. The cell wall's got arachidonic acid. The arachidonic acid gets released from the cell. The arachidonic acid leads to inflammation. Your body's going to create inflammation in your thumb. Your thumb's going to turn red and get hot because you just hit it with a hammer. That's the body's mechanism right there, right? Inflammation's not all bad. Inflammation is part of the healing process. It's the first stage of the immune response. It's an important part of what's going on with our body. We want to be able to have some inflammation. Very short-lived, very controlled inflammation, right? Cell membrane trauma releases arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid is then transformed into the pro-inflammatory hormone prostaglandins and thromboxanes through the enzyme action of this other cyclooxygenase. Non-selective NSAIDs' major side effects include significant gastrointestinal upset, gastritis, inflammation in your stomach, ulceration, hemorrhage, and even death. By blocking COX-1, which also normally acts to protect the gastrointestinal mucosa, non-selective NSAIDs and aspirin can cause significant gastric tissue damage. Last week we talked about ibuprofen causing leaky gut problems. Leaky gut is the breaking down of the lining of the intestines and causing a leaking situation in those tight junctions. A leaking situation is causing particles of food and material that is not supposed to get inside the body. It's allowing it to leak through the gut. So what this paragraph said right here is non-selective NSAIDs' major side effects can cause significant gastric tissue damage. Okay, that's one of the things my brother-in-law used to say. Did you know you bleed 2 teaspoons internally whenever you take an aspirin? I said, nope, I didn't know that. And then I started thinking about that. I started thinking about that later on, and I was like, I don't want to bleed 2 teaspoons internally when I take an aspirin. Like, is that really true? I mean, according to the guys right here at wherever they're at Vanderbilt and the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, they're the ones who wrote the article. And they're the ones that's saying that NSAIDs cause gastric tissue damage. NSAIDs cause particles of food that are not supposed to be in my body to get in my body that end up in my hands and my feet and my knees and my elbows and end up with arthritis in my joints because of the leaky gut situation that I had in my gut. So, whoa, hold on, Jason. What are you saying? What are you saying? Like when I take my Tylenol and I take my Advil and I take my Aleve and I take my aspirin and I take all that stuff because I've got joint pain or I've got some sort of pain and or some sort of inflammation, that stuff is also contributing to an ill state of health. Yep, that's what I'm telling you. That's what I learned. That's what I learned 25 years ago, listening to my crazy brother-in-law talk about this stuff. I was just like everybody else until I wasn't. And the only reason that I'm not like everybody else anymore, good or bad, is because of articles like this written by guys from medical centers. They're trying to tell us, man, NSAIDs can delay muscle regeneration and may reduce ligament, tendon, and cartilage healing. NSAIDs also have adverse effects on kidney function. The National Kidney Foundation asserts that approximately 10% of kidney failures per year are directly correlated and substantial overuse of NSAIDs. I take them every day. I take my Tylenol every day. I take my Advil every day. I take these drugs every day. Yeah, I take 2 of them every day. Yep, what you're leading to is kidney failure. Selective COX-2 inhibiting NSAIDs were thought to reduce inflammatory pain without enhancing GI bleeding. Celebrex was FDA approved in 1998, followed by the approval of Vioxx and Bextra in 1999. These drugs quickly became the mainstay for the treatment of chronic pain conditions related to inflammation. On September 30, 2004, Vioxx was withdrawn because it doubled the risk of serious thromboembolic events, including myocardial infarction. September 2004. Yeah, my grandmother was taking Vioxx when she died in her rocking chair, taking a breathing treatment. She was on Vioxx. She might have been one of those people that died of a myocardial infarction. Maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. I never know. But in 1999, the FDA approved it. They said it was fine. The FDA said, hey, it's fine. You can take this. In 2004, they withdrew it because it was causing myocardial infarction. Now, it makes you really question, I mean, how many years is that? 1999, 1 year would be 2000. That's 5 years from now. 5 years from now, we're going to pull it off the market because it's killing people. And it's like, wow. Like, it's killing people by doctors who prescribed it for patients who were having inflammatory problems. They went to their doctor, trusting that their doctor was going to give them something to help them. And what they gave them was something that killed them. Yeah, it's not uncommon. Natural compounds for inflammation. Because of the significant side effects profiles of steroids, steroidal and non-steroidal medications, there's a greater interest in natural compounds. No, that's not true. There's been a greater interest in natural compounds since the beginning of humanity. We didn't come up with non-steroidal anti-inflammatories until just recently in humanity. Now that we've tried it for a while, then and this was back all the way in 2010. Now that we tried it for a while, people are like, maybe we ought not to do that, right? Nuclear factor kappa B controls the transcription of DNA from the perpetuation of the inflammatory immune response. It acts as a switch to turn inflammation on and off in the body. Plant and animal-derived nutraceutical preparations have been used for hundreds, even thousands of years to obtain effective pain relief. Herbal medications are becoming increasingly popular because of their relatively few side effects. Yeah, the U.S. government agencies, through the FDA and others, routinely inspect the manufacture of vitamins or supplements made in this country as they do for any other food product. The products such as omega-3 essential fatty acids do have strong scientific support to be considered as an alternative and or complementary agent to NSAIDs. Alternative for sure. Published studies have shown that effectiveness of omega-3s to successfully treat spine-related pain. So omega-3s is the first one on the list. And you know that I would just go all in about that. But I'm going to mostly just skip the omega-3 part. Because if you've listened to this show at any length for any amount of time, you know already that you should be taking your omega-3s. Okay? I'll read one sentence. Research has shown that the omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids are some of the most effective natural anti-inflammatory agents available. And there's 7 references on that. But I won't stick on that for too long. Let me read this one more. The active ingredient in fish oil, EPA, and DHA enhances the conversion of COX to prostaglandin E3, not E2. Prostaglandin E2 is inflammatory. Prostaglandin E3 is anti-inflammatory. It's an odd number. Prostaglandin E1 and prostaglandin E3, they're odd numbers, they're anti-inflammatory. Prostaglandin E2 is an even number, it's inflammatory. So when you take your EPA and your DHA, it enhances the conversion of COX enzymes to prostaglandin E3, a natural anti-inflammatory agent. Prostaglandin E3 competitively inhibits, but healthy people inhibit, it turns off, prostaglandin E3 turns off the effects of the arachidonic acid conversion to prostaglandin E2, a highly inflammatory substance. These guys are right on the money right here. I mean, this is good stuff. That if you take your fish oil, you get more prostaglandin E3, it balances out your E2, and your inflammation decreases. You don't have to worry about the side effects of it because it neutralized it. And why would it neutralize it? Because people have been eating fish since people. That's the beginning of people was fish. That's what works, right? All right, let's move on. We're going to go through a whole list of them now about some different things. White willow bark. Bark from the white willow tree has an analgesic and antipyretic properties, decreases your fever. Salicin from white willow bark is converted to salicylic acid by the liver and is considered to have fewer side effects than aspirin. White willow bark should not be used in children to avoid the risk of Reye's syndrome or in a patient with peptic ulcer disease, poorly controlled diabetes, hepatic or renal disorders, liver or kidney disorders, or other conditions in which aspirin would be contraindicated. The usual dose of white willow bark is 240 milligrams a day. So that's one thing that you can do. And I don't know much about white willow bark. I'm just reading it from the article. Curcumin is the other one, or turmeric. Curcumin is a naturally occurring yellow pigment derived from turmeric, a flowering plant of the ginger family. It has traditionally been used as a coloring and flavoring spice in food products. Curcumin is an anti-inflammatory agent and has antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and anti-neoplastic effects. Curcumin is known to inhibit, there you go, again, curcumin is known to inhibit inflammation by suppressing NF-kappa B and COX enzymes, and it may be considered a viable natural alternative non-steroidal agents for the treatment of inflammation. The usual dose standard for turmeric powder is 400 to 600 milligrams taken 3 times per day. Got to make sure you get enough. That's why the same thing in the omega-3s. You got to make sure you get enough, especially if you're 6s. Can you see that now, what that actually means? Like, does it make sense when we're heavy 6s? Our bodies in the world we live in today are heavy 6s. Omega-6, 25 to 1 omega-3. That's the article that I showed you last week. Those are the numbers, right? So we got a bunch. It just means we have a bunch. What we're supposed to is 3 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3, or less, even 1 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3. But in America today, we're 25 to 1 not because all corn is bad for you, as we found out with Nicoya, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, right? Not because all corn is bad for you, not because peanut butter is bad for you. I'm not saying peanut butter is bad. What I'm saying is peanut butter is high in omega-6s. Corn is high in omega-6s. Corn syrup is high in omega-6s. A person that's high in omega-6s, you're eating a lot of high vegetable oil. You're eating corn oil in all your food. You're cooking with that. You're constantly eating it. What you're doing is you're consuming and consuming and consuming omega-6s. And what this article is saying is that omega-6s will be taken down to arachidonic acid, and they will be turned into prostaglandin E2, which is inflammation. That's what we're saying. So how do you balance 25 to 1? If I gave you 8, whatever the number is, right? If it was 25 to 1 and I gave you 8, what is it now? It's 25 to 9. If you get beat 25 to 1 or you get beat 25 to 9, does it make any difference? You still got beat, right? You didn't have enough points on your side. So if I'm going to get this under control, I don't have enough of this. I don't have enough of the omega-3 to get the omega-6 under control. I don't have enough PGE3 to balance the PGE2. You can't take 500 milligrams of fish oil if you've got 26 or 25 to 1 omega-6-3 ratio. That's why volume is important, because we got to get enough of this. You got to add 8, and then you got to add 8 more, and now you're at 17. Now we're 25 to 17. Now add 8 more. Now we're 25 to 25, and now we're 1 to 1 in the ratio, and now we're balanced. And now now we don't recognize the inflammation as much, because we have just as much anti-inflammatory as we have inflammatory. It's volume, and volume matters. And that's what they're saying in this article. They're saying 400 or 500 on turmeric. They're saying 400 or 500, 400 to 600 milligrams taken 3 times per day. How many people are doing that? How many people will say, well, I tried turmeric, it didn't really help at all? Well, what if you didn't have enough points? What are they saying on EPA? It doesn't say, it's not even the same, but that's where we go to 3,000 is the baseline, right? We go over it from there. But that's why volume matters. Let's keep going. Got a couple minutes left. Green tea. Green tea has a cardiovascular and cancer preventative characteristics due to its antioxidant properties. It is used in the treatment of arthritic disease, and anti-inflammatory agent is more recent. As an anti-inflammatory agent is more recent. The constituents of green tea include polyphenolic compounds called catechins. I'm not even going to get into those 3 things. They're most abundant catechin in green tea. This, I don't even know how to say that. Epigallocatechin 3 gallate inhibits this NF-kappa B again to decrease inflammation. Green tea inhibits that degrade cartilage. It inhibits the toxins that degrade cartilage. Green tea has both anti-inflammatory and chondroprotective effects. It helps your cartilage. Increased green tea consumption in Asia may lead to significant cardiovascular, neuroprotective, and cancer preventative properties. The recommendations for green tea consumptions is 3 to 4 cups a day, or green tea extract doses 300 to 400 milligrams a day. This next one, I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. Pycnogenol, a maritime pine bark. You guys probably know that more than I do. It is derived from the bark of the maritime pine tree, and has been used for more than 2,000 years. It is helpful in wound healing, treating scurvy, healing of ulcers, and reducing vascular inflammation. So that one, it inhibits NF-kappa B again and pro-inflammatory cytokines. Studies have shown that it is 50 to 100 times more potent than vitamin E in neutralizing free radicals, and that it helps to recycle and prolong the activity of vitamin C and vitamin E. And I don't have time to break that down, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop it right there because we're fixing to get into Boswellia, and that'll be something that we get in tomorrow night. So I'm just going to stop it right there because I want to dive into that paragraph a little bit where it's talking about the activity of vitamin C and vitamin E when it's talking about neutralizing free radicals, because that's inside the cell, talking about the mitochondria and protecting the mitochondria, and that sentence is a big sentence right there. So I'm gonna stop it right now, and we'll carry it on for tomorrow night. So if you have any questions or comments, you guys that are on the radio, if you have any questions or comments and you want to send them to me, 806-794-0400. That's our office phone at The Rock, and you can send us a text. I'd be glad to answer any of those. And the question I got tonight, I'll do a better job of answering that here a little bit later. You can always leave us a message on social media. I appreciate you guys for making comments and liking it and all that sort of thing. I think it helps whatever the algorithm to get some attention for the show. So that's all I got for you tonight. I hope you enjoyed that. You guys have a good evening, and we'll be back tomorrow night at 6.